Hello and welcome to Midland Squirrel Hunter. This is a channel that's dedicated to British wildlife and the conservation of British wildlife. So that will mainly be dispatching of woodland pests and farmyard pests, protection and conservation for all British songbirds, and protection and conservation for all British woodlands. So we are a new channel. If you could give us a like and subscribe, just a precursor for anybody before you do subscribe. Future content will contain dispatching of woodland pests and farmyard pests. It's just for anybody that's a bit squeamish or don't want to see that kind of thing. With this video, I'd just like to do a short introduction, like introduce myself and the guys that I shoot with, and basically let you know what it is we do and why we do it. So we'll start off with the main man, which is Steve. He's an older chap, but don't let that fool you. He can come out with us for a good 12 hours, stomping around in the woods and trudging through the mud and all that kind of thing. And as you can appreciate, in the British weather, that's not always easy. So yeah, he's basically the permission owner. Anything that happens on this permission goes through Steve, as to feeders, hides, things like that being done. We do help maintain the woodland, as I said before, by taking away fallen trees. We fell trees ourselves if that needs to happen, diseased or whatever. And yeah, everything that goes with that. There's myself, so I've been shooting on this permission thanks to Steve, aka the Squirrel King, for about 3 years now. Had quite a lot of squirrels out of this place. We must have, well, there's 500 acres just over, and we must have a good 4 woodlands that are obviously getting quite a lot of hammer from squirrels. We do have a woodland that is protected by the National Trust, more or less adjacent to our land, that has no conservation in there at all. They're not really open to that, but that's another issue. And then we've got Dan. So he's been shooting on this permission for about a year. He's a real good friend of mine and Steve's. He was brought in just because the number of squirrels is getting ridiculous really, and the damage that they do, bark stripping. There's been a hell of a lot of declining songbirds around this particular estate. So yeah, we've managed to bring the numbers back up on that. So what we do is, as I said at the start, we dispatch woodland pests and farmyard pests, which is mainly on other permissions that we have. But the woodland pests that we mainly come into contact with are the grey squirrel. Some of you may not know, but the grey squirrel is responsible for the decline of the red, the native red. We're looking at maybe 10 years, and then if something's not done within that 10 years, sadly we'll no longer have any red squirrels up in the north of the country. There's none here in the Midlands, but this is why we do what we're doing, so we could try and reintroduce, hopefully in my lifetime, some reds back into this this part of the country. So yeah, I'll give you a quick look at what it is outside. This is just one part of a woodland that we're in. At the minute I'm just in the shed, which we have named Squirrel HQ. This was granted to us really by Steve at the start of the year, just because of the hours that me and Dan do put in up here. We've done, like I said before, 12-hour shifts. When it's raining and windy and snowing and all that kind of thing, it can be really taxing. So yeah, the decision was made that we'd put this little shed up, and it'd give us somewhere to just have a bit of respite, make some food, some hot food, a nice hot drink, and just have a stretch really for a bit. Because any of you that do this kind of thing that we do, you'll know sitting in a hide, yeah, can give you a bit of backache. So I'll just give you a quick show as to what's outside. So this is the part of the woods that the shed's situated in. If you can see, there's a little hatch there. I'll show you inside, show you how that functions. So me and Dan constructed this at the start of the year. Gave it a couple of coats of makeshift camo paint. So we've got a saloon door there with a shelf on, just so you can get a bipod. So we do have a feeder just out at 27 yards. You get a bipod on there to shoot from. Show the little sign that Dan had made us at work. Squirrel HQ. Like MTV Cribs. Just give you a guide inside. Everything that a squirrel hunter needs. So this is the hatch. It's going out to 27 yards. Don't know if you can just see that feeder. Got stove, utensils, gas, everything we need in there. Kettle, heater, light. Little table there so you can set your gun up when you first come in. Put the box underneath. You can then prep food or whatever else you need on there. We are in the process of having a bit of a facelift in here, a bit of a rearrangement. It's had more facelift than Michael Jackson, but yeah, we'll just make it winter ready. And I'll just show you what kind of feeder it is that we shoot. So again, these were constructed by Dan. Really good quality, still in the early stages because we're just testing lids at the minute. We did have rigid lids, but they weren't working too good. So we've gone back to an old style of lid we used to use, which is like a rubber. The only problem we do find with this sometimes is you get a lot of gnawing across the edges. Sometimes they can just eat the whole lid, especially if the feeder's not topped up. So it's a solid ply box covered with a mesh just to try and deter any kind of damage from chewing. Metal trim across the edge, again just to stop any damage. Not got any across the front for a drip detail, and that's it. Works really well and stops most of the birds getting into the feed, which, you know, if you shoot from an open feeder can be quite expensive. We always put a bit of grain and nuts out for the birds anyway. They've got their own feeders set up in the woodland, so it's not a problem. I'll show you what we're using at the minute. So usually we'll use just whole peanut mix, but we're having a bit of a problem with suppliers at the minute. He's just running low, but he promises some more next week. So for now we've just used a bit of sunflower seed, some whole mace, a bit of grain in there, a bit of wheat, and just mixed it up, bulked it up with the peanuts we've got. So that's the feeders. We also come with a little spinner, just so when you're out here you can test your zero. So that's the introduction to myself, Dan and Steve about wrapped up, the shed and the feeders that we use. But I'd just like to touch on a little further the reason as to why we do what we do. So everything that we do is in line with the WCA Act of 1981 and 1985, Section 5 and Section 9. I won't go into that, you can research that yourself if you want to. But personally, we have witnessed the decline of songbirds. We've witnessed bark stripping, which gives trees disease, and as you can respect, when that tree falls from disease, it damages other trees, has a domino effect upon the woodland because of habitat and everything else like that. Yeah, so that's mainly why we do what we do. Anything that we dispatch of on farms is usually, well, is always under duress of the farmer. Protection of grain, protection of animals, all that kind of thing. So yeah, that's a slight insight into what we do and why we do it. You'll learn more obviously through the more content that we put out there, and thanks for tuning in, much appreciated. Take care.